Daniel Ellsberg's main claim to fame was to have photocopied what were known as the Pentagon Papers, in which it became clear that the US government was lying to everybody about the status of things in the Vietnam War, that the Vietnam War was not going anywhere near as well as they thought, and that it was headed pretty much almost certainly to defeat. Ellsberg had these papers, which were, I think, produced in something like 1968, and in 1971 he released them to the New York Times and then to the Washington Post and then to the European newspapers. Now, we live in a situation, of course, where the mainstream media are constantly harping upon the lies that Donald Trump tells about the last election, about this and that and everything. So it's constant harping on the fact that he is a liar. But what Ellsberg showed, and I think that actually this was a key point in American history, was the degree to which the US government was lying. And we saw this again in terms of the run-up to the Iraq War. The Iraq War was founded on a set of lies about what Saddam Hussein was up to. Those lies were taken before the UN by Colin Powell. They were taken to the public by Condoleezza Rice. There comes a point where the public learns not to trust at all what government says. One worries a great deal about what kinds of lies are being perpetuated right now around Ukraine. I don't know quite what the inner group is saying, but I do not think that the Ukraine war is being fought for exactly the reasons that Biden keeps on outlining. When you start to ask the question, who benefits from this war and what benefits do they get, then obviously the defense industries are very happy right now. Obviously, there are various other features that are happy right now. We are concealing things about our operation. For instance, the essay that came out by Seymour Hersh recently in the New York Magazine about the blowing up of the Nord Stream pipeline, which everybody said was sabotaged. And it's fairly clear from Seymour Hersh's account that the United States blew up the pipeline. And they blew up the pipeline because this was the major means by which Russia was going to and was currently actually providing oil to Germany and the like. So, Biden said very early on that the US would take care of that problem, and take care of it they did by sabotaging the pipeline. Now, this is not public knowledge. It's only Seymour Hersh bringing it out and giving considerable amount of evidence that this was the case. Now, of course, Germany has to switch its sources of energy, and the rest of Europe has to switch the sources of energy away from Russia to guess where? I guess increasingly from the US, liquid natural gas from the US. So that the US is benefiting very well, and the oil companies in the US are benefiting very well from US policy of blowing up the pipeline. So here's the sort of thing that Ellsberg was expert at revealing, and we still are getting revelations coming out which suggest that the government is concealing, lying, particularly about wartime conditions and wartime activities. But even further than that, also lying about certain aspects of public policy and the like, so that the distrust of central government, which Ellsberg, I think, fueled, because up until then, to the mid-1960s, there was always a kind of a skepticism about the Vietnam War and what was going on and the like. But the population in general, I think, felt that somehow or other war was justified given the kinds of ways in which the government was broadly trusted to tell us what was going on. But when it became clear that the government was concealing what was going on, that was the end. Now we've come to a point now where nobody trusts the government anymore, which is unfortunate in some respects. But nevertheless, I think that Ellsberg led the way towards that mistrust of government, and with this critical kind of perspective. And I think that this critical perspective is something which needs to be kept alive and kept in motion.